Hey guys, Brian Saftari with www.collegeplanningexperts.com, America's leading authority on making college affordable one family at a time. So today I have the privilege and honor to have Lynda McGee here. She's a college counselor at a school in downtown. It's a magnet school. I'll let her share her background and how long she's been a counselor. You don't want to miss the information you're going to learn on this video because there's a lot of nuggets, a lot of aha moments as a parent and a counselor that you can take this information and it can really help your students if you're helping counselors as a college counselor, similar to Lynda. If you're a newer counselor getting into the counseling world, learning from Lynda, her experience as being a counselor for many, many years, I think you're going to learn a lot from this. But also as a parent, understanding what counselors know and what they do and what they don't do will also help you take control of this college planning process, so that way you don't think that the counselors are going to do everything for you. As much as they have the heart to do that, unfortunately they can't do all that. I come from a counseling background and we have counselors who work for us as college counselors, so I understand it. But I actually wanted to bring someone directly from the high school that's a college counselor sharing their wealth of knowledge that can help you out. So Lynda, thanks so much for being here.
Oh, sure, no problem.
Great. So tell me a little bit about your background, your school, how you got into counseling, how long you've been a counselor, and what you do as a counselor at the school.
Okay, well, I was a teacher for 14 years. I always wanted to be a counselor, but I needed to finish the program. I finally did, and in 2000 I became a school counselor, academic counselor, and I worked with a certain load of students at my high school. I'd been at my high school since 1998, so a long time.
Wow.
But at my school, the structure is we have the guidance counselor, or now the correct term is school counselor. You each have your caseload. And then we had a college counselor who was originally part-time, but now it's a full-time position, to work with students specifically on college-related issues, college planning, the process of the application, financial aid, and things of that sort. The academic or school counselor helps with social issues, with academic planning to create a four-year plan for the high school, to take any extra courses that need to be done to meet requirements, and again, that important crisis counseling and things that happen to, put an end to everything academic. So they take care of that. So at our school, we do have that division. I know in many high schools now they don't have the college counselor position, or they never did. So their school counselors are expected to do everything. One of the biggest issues with that is at my high school, I am allowed to attend conferences and meetings, and especially in the fall, I'm gone a lot in order to catch up on what's new this year. The school counselors can't get away that often because they're often asked to supervise and to do testing, proctoring, and many things besides counseling.
Sure.
So they cannot leave campus like I do. So there's that issue. How are you going to help students through the process if you aren't allowed to go to the training to be up on what's going on? If you're going on your own experiences from 20 years ago, you're not helping the students.
Wow. Yeah, and I see that. That's a good point. That just because you have 20 years of counseling experience, it may not be updated, because I think you're right. You should be going for personal development in your field to stay up to date, because as you know, when you went to school, and even when I went, things has drastically changed from what the college planning process was like 20 years ago or even 10 years ago versus what it's like this year alone. So I think it's very important for a college counselor, if they're truly a college counselor, that they should be going to like the NACAC and the WACAC and all these different these conferences that's going to make them a better counselor and stay up to date so they can help the students. So that's a great point that you made. So you've been fortunate to be able to do that, which is great.
My principal allows it. Many principals do not. The other difficulty is professional development for the district is planned for teachers. And I am usually required to attend those as well. They're for the classroom. They're about Common Core. Nothing to do with my job. So even though you can say counselors are attending professional development, they may not have any within their district that applies to counseling. And even when they do, my district, it has been developing on a local level counselor professional development. It usually has to do with the class planning, the crisis counseling, being aware of resources for students in need in social and personal development. But just a smidge of the actual college process counseling, that's where there's a real lack of knowledge. Not because the counselors don't care, it's they just are not, there's not enough time in the day.
Yeah, I just attended the CASC, the Counselors Association, that's once a year, I think, and we were the only college planning company to go out, and I was a speaker on the topic, helping counselors in the topic of college planning. We had, of 3 events that were going on concurrently, the classes, we had 85 counselors in mine that attended, and they said the same thing. They were saying that we do a lot as a counselor, and we try individually to learn, but it's very hard to keep up with everything related to college planning, because you have the student planning part, you talked about the social, academic fit, and the babysitting, so to speak, 9th grade to senior year so they can get in. But then we also have the financial aid and the funding piece that go on with it. And that part, there's a big gap there, which is probably one of the biggest things in this process that has to go hand in hand.
Right, and, and most counselors won't touch it because they don't know enough. They're concerned about their liability if they should give incorrect information. And so if the schools aren't giving it, that means that there's a large subset of students who aren't getting any help at all in that area, and they need to seek it outside of the school. And there is the good information or the good way to go, and there is the bad way to go, and if you don't have direction, then you could possibly end up with people who will ask for a lot of money to give you very basic information that is available in other ways.
Yeah, and I think that's really important, because in the years I've been teaching this, I tell families, do your research. I get people getting solicitations all the time on just submitting a FAFSA, for example. The federal government has a section that says you don't have to pay a fee for a FAFSA. But when someone types in FAFSA on Google, the first site they get is FAFSA.com, which is not, it's not a real, but they think it's FAFSA. They're like, oh, okay, we have to pay a fee. But then they're like, well, wait, I thought FAFSA's free. And there's that confusion there because of Google and websites.
Actually, many of them don't even question it. Even though the first word in FAFSA is free, I've had kids come to me, saying, I didn't have a credit card with me, so I couldn't pay for the FAFSA. And I say, what is the first word in FAFSA? And they're like, oh, they don't make that connection. They're asked to pay a fee for the CSS profile. They're asked to pay a fee for college applications. Why wouldn't there be a fee for the FAFSA? So there's a lot of confusion about that. And also, one of the things, scams, whatever, I don't like it. My kids come to me with these invitations that they've been specially selected for these out-of-town companies to come into a hotel and do this slick presentation on how they're going to help them, which will only be by phone and internet because they'll never go to their offices, which are in Texas somewhere or something. And they want, they're pressuring even very low-income families to pay that $1,800 because they're saying basically the underlying message is, if you don't do this for your child, you're a bad parent. And they kind of don't let them go until they get those papers signed on some kind of an installment agreement. That's not affordable for families. That $1,800 is a scholarship that they could have given to themselves.
No, parents, that's a really good point. Make sure you don't miss that. FAFSA stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. It's a free form. You do not need to pay a fee. If you just want to fill out your FAFSA with no strategies, if you're a family that doesn't require it, obviously you got to do your research. FAFSA is free. You do not need to pay a fee. Make sure you research that you're on the right accredited site, that it is a federal government site, that you are in the right place, because I get a lot of people also, just like what you said, that wonder, why do we have to pay this fee? In fact, you talked about companies that charge $1,800 or so forth. We do charge a fee, and you're aware of it too. And parents do know, and it's important for me to explain what we do versus what's different than other companies. And the important thing that we do is we have licensed counselors, just like how you are, that have their master's, they have their bachelor's, they have their PPS degree. They've been counselors for many, many years, really hand-holding parents who really need that undivided attention on whether it's to add more to what the counselors are doing and giving them more hand-holding, or whether it's helping a middle income or a higher income family position so that they get more financial aid and show them financially how to fund it. We handle all three areas. And since 2004, one thing I've learned is you can go online and find a mortgage company that is ethical, that does things the right way, and they put their client first. And I know a lot of companies online that you see that are scams in the mortgage industry. I think in any industry that we look at, you have people that do things with ethics and they do things right, and then there are companies that don't. So express what you think being a counselor for, how many years have you been a counselor now, Lynda?
Since 2000.
Since 2000, so that's a lot of years. So you've seen a lot of companies that come and go that are charging, unfortunately, parents that shouldn't have to pay a fee. Avoiding those is really important. Understanding that there are resources out there that are free, like Cash for College and other things, and why you wanted to work with us and why you believe what we do is different. So maybe you can just talk a little bit about that.
Okay, well, this is really important. It's for parents and counselors. If someone's been solicited or you find something, the internet can be a friend or a foe. But use it to help yourself. There's so much on there. You can look up anything. Go to Better Business Bureau. What kind of complaints have come in on this company? And there's some where there's sites where they go through scams and they look at ripoffs. Sometimes all you have to do is enter that name, and you'll see that they had another name before, and these are companies that are just changing their carpetbaggers. They're coming into town, they're taking your money, and they're leaving. And it's very difficult to prosecute a company that's not located in your town. It's a way for them to get away. So the most important thing is, do you have a base? Can I go to your office? Maybe I don't want to, but can I? Do you have one? Is there a home base for you?
Yeah.
Because,
like you said, Lynda, a brick and mortar office is a good indicator, and if they have a staff, they're not going to be around for a month or two. They're going to be around for a long time.
they're invested.
Whereas a lot of companies, 9 out of 10 college planning companies I've seen, or consultants is what they call themselves, they have an executive suite because there's no contract. It's a month to month, and they may be in a certain area for a certain time, and then they hop around from one area to another. And yeah, you're right. When you go on their website, it's a one-page site, and it's trying to pitch you something, and there's no real company you can go research. Or like you said, that's a good point that you said. We know companies local out here that operate under one name, and then they've gotten a bad name. Now they've changed their name to another company.
That's right. And you know what? Who can say they are a college planning expert? I can, you can, my dog can. There are no official licenses, of course, to become a college planner or college mission counselor. I mean, I have worked privately with people who are in high schools where they have no counselor at all. So I have done a little bit of that on the side. So I don't actually have an office, but you can find me. You can ask people about my reputation. I'm easy to follow. So it's not, people need to understand that this is such a great way to make money if you want to do it the wrong way.
Yeah.
Just get a business card, go to Vistaprint and get one for free, and voila, you're a college counselor. And poor families are taken in by that. So you need to, you need to look at references. You need to protect yourself, because this is too important to your child's future to just throw it away on anybody. Yeah. If you're going outside of the school, you need to look into it the same way you would not buy your car from Shady Sam.
Yeah.
You need to really be careful.
And you know, it's unfortunate that we speak at over 73 high schools, and I cannot do our job with our parents without people like you as a counselor. I know I can't. And working as a team has been the best thing we've been able to do since 2004 when I started this, because as a counselor, there's a lot of things you guys do we don't do, and there are a lot of things on the financial aid and even the positioning side that we do that counselors don't do, because we have more resources and time to go and just focus and hone down on those skill sets, like you mentioned. So it's been a great relationship working with counselors, 73 different high schools and growing. Part of NACAC, WACAC, only speakers approved to speak there. CASC, Association for Christians Association, it's ACSI, which is a Christians organization, which is all private schools. We are the only speakers there. And I've been blessed to be around good people, good counselors like what you do and help students. And it's just been a great experience for me because of my experience of not going to college or the colleges I wanted to go to and going broke and almost being bankrupt. I take all that experience and my passion I have to meet more people and great people like you that are out there serving and helping parents and students and hoping to make a difference in their lives. So it's an honor again to have you here, and I know I like that you're very, very skeptical, because a lot of people are naive, and because, like you said, it's about their kids, they want to do anything. Like, what parent doesn't want to offer their kids the best education or the best resources? And when they get pitched things that they may not need, unfortunately they just do it because it's safer for them to say, okay, I did it even if I got taken, knowing that that's who I am. I want to provide the best for my child. And what you mentioned is really important. So parents, a couple things you want to be careful with on this topic is do a Better Business Bureau search on them. Make sure they're with a Better Business Bureau and they've been around for a long time. Make sure their business license is active. And if they say they've been around for 10 years, make sure they've been around in college planning for 10 years, not been in the workforce for 10 years working at McDonald's and then a financial planner and a college planner and a real estate agent and everything else, and now they dove into college planning because they see it's a lucrative industry.
And it is.
And it is, that now they say they have 10 years of experience. Well, 10 years of experience in what? Do you have verifiable proof? So one of the things I like to do that separates me, I show families my business license since I first started. And as you see the binders we have in the front, I have client binders of all the clients that we've helped get financial aid and all income level. And we're with the Better Business Bureau. We're at every single website out there, and we have a real brick and mortar office. So it's important as a parent that you go and visit the office. When they say they have an office, is it an executive suite or is it a real brick and mortar office with real staff that are licensed? There are companies also out there that they're a one-man shop, but what they will do is they will outsource the college planning service to somewhere, like you said, in Texas or in the East Coast that you'll never see, that they say they have in-house counselors, but basically what they do, they charge like $2,000 and then they give the $1,000 to another company to do the counseling, and you have an 800 hotline that you can call and hope that you can get them when you really need them. So if you're going to pay a low amount and you think comparing the services with an accredited company that they may be more expensive, make sure you know what you're paying for. Make sure you're not just paying for a FAFSA, but you're paying for real experts that are going to handhold you through this process, because then it is worth it. Because our parents pay between $2,500, $3,500. It could be a 4-year process. It's ongoing, but we know when we take on a family, they're going to get a return on investment, no questions asked. Otherwise, I won't want to take them on, because I want to be able to build this reputation that I have, and my reputation is more important. 10 years in doing this, I would never want to take on a client that I know I can't help out. Every staff member here operates in that fashion. So knowing that, I know you'll run into people and you may want to compare us with everybody else. Just make sure you do your research and that you are not being taken advantage of, even if it's for $100, because even $100 may be expensive if we're talking about just submitting a FAFSA. So hopefully we've nailed that real hard in that.
Right, and I think it's important that you know that when a service comes in, a lot of times I'm contacted by companies that want to come into my school, do a presentation because they're hoping to get clients out of it. I don't get as many as some schools because I have more lower income students and they figure they're not going to make the money off of them. But even so, not every school vets their speakers very well. Sometimes there's some kind of, I don't know how they get in there, but they're just like, oh, sure, because they don't really realize what they're exposing their students to. I'm very protective. I know other counselors that are, but some are more like, oh, sure, this is great. Now it's something I don't have to do. Someone else can do it for me. So most of the time, when you have a speaker at a school, you can feel trustworthy. But I know I have had, for example, teachers at my school was a problem in the past who would invite speakers into the classroom that I didn't know about because they offered them some little gift or something like that,
Kickbacks are big.
And you know, so they came in and it was as though the school was endorsing that person. So that made me very upset because some of those organizations, I didn't want my kids anywhere near them, and I had to go in and do cleanup to make sure that didn't happen.
I've heard, being in schools, some of the schools, I personally like the counseling and the school system to bring on many speakers in different areas to provide something that maybe the school, the counseling, that maybe they're not a specialist in. And I'm a believer of finding other people that are more successful, and you partner with them to provide what's best for the parent. That's just my belief when I go out. I've gone into some schools that I haven't been able to get into because the principals have some kind of real connection with these organizations, that either they're getting a kickback or they have a vested interest with that company that they patrol, that they can only want to bring in one company. And then I've realized that over the years that I haven't been able to provide our knowledge, our free workshops at the schools, I've realized that there's a lot more to it than just that the counselors and the principals are looking for many options where parents can go and look at, versus spearheading and instruction and steering parents towards one direction only. And I think that's not good either. I think the counselors and the school administrators, if they're going to bring in speakers, they should have a couple of speakers, even in the same topic, because some people resonate with different people. And I think the parents need to have options. But when the parents are relying on the school administrators, like the principals and the counselors, and the principals and counselors are only holding on and saying this is the only company you should go talk to, I also think that's not good, because there's probably other things behind it that's probably preventing them from opening up.
Well, there could be or there could not. It could be that they are just protecting the students, and this one they know is a good guy.
Sure.
But mainly, school counselors have many jobs and duties and things that we have to do, and it's very difficult to stay on top of what's out there, and to expect counselors to be able to sit down. I'm at a relatively small school. I've got 1,060, which for LA Unified is smallish. I've got a senior class of about 250, but can I sit with 250 children and their parents and go through every form? I mean, I'm good, but I'm not that good. I can't give each one the attention I want to, and that's only the seniors. I mean, what about the underclassmen who need guidance? So I have to have sources outside of myself that I trust that can be helpful.
Sure.
So the reason why I'm here is because I believe that my endorsement means something, because I'm picky. I feel that I can say to the counselors and parents out there, I trust this company. I don't think they're going to rip you off. I think they're going to help you move forward. I don't think you're going to be sorry at all. And I don't say that easily. And I just want to make that point, because that's important. I have integrity about this thing. I really care about my kids, and I care about kids that aren't mine. I help kids that don't even go to my school because they don't have resources.
I'm very humbled about that. Thank you. I mean,
that's important.
I know it's not something that, I mean, most companies can't say that, but it's taken 10 years for me to be where I'm at today. I couldn't have done it in the first year. It really is a building block, and I still think every year I'm learning, even myself, in this industry, because there's so much you can still learn.
Oh my gosh,
even when I do this full time, and I'm full time in the personal development side of going out to every conference there is, talking to every high school people, talking to colleges, interviewing admissions officers. We have former admissions and financial aid officers that we've hired from the colleges. Why do we do that? Because I think the best resources, it comes from the admissions offices direct and the financial aid office direct, because if we can pick their brains, and they're going to tell us who they accept and who they don't, and that's going to help a student find the right fit school for them and allow them to get in. As you and I know how hard it is to get accepted to college, that makes a world of difference. If we can help a family understand what they do behind closed doors of the financial aid office on who they want and how much money they're going to give, like you shared a story, and we can maybe talk about some stories without giving names of families that have a 0 EFC and the school is offering them. So let's talk about the business side of college on the financial aid, because I want parents to know that college is a very successful business. Don't put everything in the hands of the financial aid office. They can be nice people, but you have to make sure you take control and that you don't put everything in their hands, because I did that, and that's how I got in debt. I was offered PLUS loans in my name back then when they would offer it at 8 to 16% adjustable, and I just thought because the school is my friend, and by walking into the financial aid office they're going to be looking out what's best for my family's finances, and I was shocked that they put me in a cookie cutter process, and that later on I was in $53,000 in debt. So let's talk about some pitfalls in financial aid I think that parents should be aware of.
Well, I think one thing that parents, at least the parents I work with, one of their biggest weaknesses, I guess you could say, is that they get that financial aid letter, and as far as they're concerned, that's it. It is set in stone. This is what I have or do not have. I don't think they understand that in order to churn out the financial aid letters for God knows how many applicants, because remember, it isn't just for all the students who are accepted, but not all the students who will actually enter. They have to give it to them ahead of time, so it's way more than will actually enroll. So they're churning them out. So they have a formula. They have an institutional formula about how they do aid for this type and whatever. Some of them meet 100% of needs. Some of them have a formula that's 65% or 40% or whatever. But I think parents think that that is it. And they don't understand that, well, you can't just go in and boss your way around. Financial aid is negotiable. It is not set in stone. Some things are not even offered. How many financial aid letters have I seen that don't have work study on them? You have to ask for it. But do you know to ask for it? Of course not. The Cal Grant isn't showing up, but you don't know how that works. So you don't ask about it because you forgot to change the school because you put down your dream school and that's not where you're actually going. I mean, there's all these little things. The schools sometimes don't say, oh, by the way, are you getting a Cal Grant? We don't see it. No, you'll just lose that money if you don't change the school and do what you have to do. They're getting a little better about trying to contact students, but they're doing it on email. Do students check their email?
Exactly.
They make me crazy with that.
Parents, counselors, this is a really good point that I want to make sure that you don't miss these little nuggets. Lynda just mentioned, and I talk about this at the workshop, the number one way to get more money, I talk about this in my workshop, is negotiate, never take your first offer, and there's something called an appeals process. They're not going to have a form on their website that says, here's our negotiation process, because everybody would want to do that.
That's right.
They call it an appeal process, an appeals. Basically, it means you're going in and asking for a better award package. Maybe you have high medical expenses that they don't see. Maybe you submitted your financial aid forms last year and you had a good income, but this year going into it, your income is one income household and not two. That can be negotiated because your award package is given based on the year prior's financial aid and figures, not for the year you're going into school. So Lynda kind of generally talked about negotiate. It's called an appeals process, so it's very important for you to understand you can appeal and negotiate. Just the past week, a couple weeks ago, we had our financial aid officer. She went back and appealed at USC. We had a family getting like $10,500 in financial aid. We went back and appealed that their income is lower now. That appeal went to an extra $12,000. So they went from $10,500 to $26,000, $27,000 in financial aid just by appealing and explaining your true circumstances at the financial aid office. So make sure parents, you don't forget that you can appeal. So that's a great point.
Right, but I think it's also important to not use the bull in a china shop approach. You have to, colleges have, even though they're people within the office and they have feelings, you cannot insult them or make them feel like you're making demands, especially as a parent when they really want to talk with students. You have to be careful how you do that. So if you're working with a company, they know how to do that. People doing it on their own, sometimes they don't really know how to ask. They may know what to ask or have an idea of what to ask, but they don't ask in a way that's going to really get them results, because these things are individual, as you say.
Yeah.
It's not like if you make the appeal, you will automatically get this. No, it's a process. It's a human process. And so you can't just jump in there and demand, well, I know that if I make this appeal, I'll get more money. No, you won't. Not with that attitude. So you have to be careful. You have to use people who kind of know what they're doing, or at least get a lot of good advice before you go in.
And I use the analogy that you can go online and get any information, but knowing how to apply the information in your specific situation is what I tell families. If I can help you, it's not because you can't find the stuff that I'm talking about. You can Google this stuff, but you don't know what to Google, when to Google it, how to do it, how to specifically do it based on your special circumstance. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that the stuff is the stuff. Anybody can figure out the stuff, but the stuff behind the stuff is what makes the world of difference. Why we have 600 families now currently in my database that pay a membership fee, and 2,200 families that I've personally handheld through this process since 2004, and that's verifiable. And that's the other thing. A lot of companies will say, yeah, we've helped 5,000 students through the college planning process. Well, when you start doing your real in-depth research and going through the layers of, do they have a real office? Do they have real staff? Do they pay them real W-2? Are they real employees here in the U.S. or in their office? Are they with the Better Business Bureau? Are they approved by these big organizations like NACAC and WACAC? And are they, around, or are they just using these kind of symbols to make it seem like they're matching other companies? So I've seen that a lot, and we've seen, families that have unfortunately thought that they're all the same, which is...
Right. And I want to add that the majority of school counselors, embarrassingly, have no idea how to do this, to do a financial aid appeal. They have no idea. It's not something we're taught. We're not taught it unless you went through a special, like I went through a college counseling certificate program that said a little bit about it, but a lot of what I've learned is through my own on-the-job training, which most counselors are too busy to do. I just made time for it, and there are other counselors who, usually through a particular student that they really cared about, they learned about the process, but most counselors, they just don't have time to do this, or they don't know what to do, or a combination of both.
Sure.
So you can't just go in there with sit down with the counselor and expect the counselor to do this. This is not really a part of a school counselor's job description.
Yeah.
And so you really need to look to someone else or yourself for that.
And that's what I feel like the benefit and why we're at 73 different high schools approved to speak has been because those counselors and the school administrators come from your viewpoint. They understand that they can't do it all, they don't know it all, they can't pretend to know it all. They seek out experts in areas that they are not an expert at, and that's why we have such a great success by me being successful helping our families that end up hiring us, because we know the counselors at that school that we work with do their part because we can't do that part, and then the counselors know the part that they can't do, they rely on us to do it. And that really, we've looked at our stats. Number one, it's increased high school graduation. It's increased kids going to college. It's increased their ratio from the school side on how many students actually go to a four-year school, which obviously statistics for the principals, those are important for them. So that's why they bring us, because they know we can increase graduation from persuading and motivating the parents that there's a lot of things they can do to get financial aid and they can send their kids to college. Chances are what we do is, one of the things that parents don't think is we can send a child to a private school for cheaper than a state school, and you're out in 4 years or less.
I know. That is probably one of the most misunderstood notions ever. And that's because even the worksheets that you find online or in college planning books have you comparing tuitions. I throw those out. I don't even want my kids looking at that. Stop comparing tuitions, because you cannot compare sticker price. You have to compare financial aid. You know, what's the average financial aid award for this school versus that school? How much percentage of need can they meet? Those are the questions you need to ask, not what is your tuition.
Yeah,
and I think that is one of, probably the number one misunderstood thing about looking for a college. Because one of the problems with the net price calculator being out there is that some of them are really good and other ones only look at such basic things.
Yeah.
I think the most important thing a family needs to understand is, what is our EFC? What is our estimated family contribution now, like in 9th grade? So we won't be shocked in 12th grade because it's probably not going to change that much. What are they expecting us to come up with? And then you can work on, is there a way we can lower this amount,
Yeah.
or whatever, but at least know what they're going to be looking at.
Sure.
And that's why there are tools like the FAFSA forecaster, or you have something on your website to help people understand, just when you fill out the app, this is what they're going to think your family can afford. Now, you may not agree.
Of course. No one does. But you know, a funny thing, you mentioned that parents should know their EFC in 9th grade. 9 out of 10 families, probably 10 out of 10 families, find out their EFC between January and March of their senior year.
12th grade year. Yes, I know.
And it's too late, because that EFC was given based on last year's finances, not
And
the
and
year
I
going
have
forward.
seen people miss out on things like the Cal Grant for something as small as $1,000 or even less. Sometimes doing the overtime was a bad idea
Yeah.
that particular year. I always tell them the one time in your life you want to be as poor as possible is the year before you go to college.
Yeah, that's called your base year, parents. So anytime you hear about the base year for financial aid, Lynda's talking about the year prior. So for example, if you're a class of 2014 student or family, your 2013 financial aid planning matters. So it's not about submitting your forms that really matter, that it's free, anybody can do, but it's if strategically someone can help you and go, if your income is going to be $84,000 a year and you can get to 83, and right under 83,000 you're eligible for anywhere from $3,000 up to $11,000 in Cal Grant every single year, yeah, that's the year that you're going to want to work $1,000 less, which sounds odd, but that $1,000 less in income would give you $44,000 of financial aid free from Cal Grant because you knew the rules beforehand. But when you submit the forms in the senior year and now you already made $84,000 and you can't change that, well, guess what? The school didn't tell you anything. That's how they make you do things after the fact. When you start figuring these things out, it's too late and you've already lost so much money.
Right. The earlier you can get an idea about what you're eligible for, the better. But it's not too late. I mean, there are things that you can do at the last minute, but just like anything else, it's so much better if you can do it ahead of time and plan for it and be ready and be prepared.
And I talk about it at the workshop. I go, if you think about going on a vacation, if you plan this out a year in advance and you start booking your airfare a year in advance versus booking your airfare 1 week before the vacation, chances are 9 out of 10 times you're going to get a better airfare if you've booked it in advance. It's funny how if you go on an airplane and you talk to every single person there and ask them how much you paid for that seat, you'll probably get different amounts. And the ones that paid less, it's usually because they booked it in advance, unless there was one of those last-minute travel agency discounts where they're like, okay, we can fill some seats and we're going to give you a discount.
That's luck.
But exactly. So in the college planning world, it's the same. If you are going to wait to the last minute, well, I hate to be the first to say this. I've been told to be I'm the professor of harsh reality, and I just tell people the way it is. I have no filter. And the reality is, parents plan ahead. Don't wait till the last minute. By planning, you will save a lot more money statistically versus waiting till the last minute and trying to do this last minute. Because by doing it last minute, you have less time. You're trying to put things together in such a small amount of time, and the error rate is going to be a lot higher because you're doing it last minute. So another advice is start as early as 9th grade in this entire college planning process.
Right. And parents who have started a college fund when their child was an infant had no clue tuition was going to do what it has done.
Sure.
If your child was born 18 years ago, what was college tuition 18 years ago? That was around the goal, probably. Well, things have changed dramatically, and what people need to realize is financial aid has changed dramatically too.
Sure.
There is a way to strategize to make your money go farther, but that's why you go to the people who know what they're doing. And that's the whole point of having trustworthy experts who can help you.
Yeah.
And hopefully your counselor can aim you towards people, or if you are a counselor, just know that there are organizations and companies that you can trust so that you feel like you're not putting your little lambs out there for slaughter. But you need to do your research, and I did, and that is why I'm here.
Great, thank you. Anything else that you want to mention to parents or counselors that in the years that you've been a counselor doing this, anything that could, I want to always, when I do these interviews, I want it to be as educational as possible. I want to provide the most amount of research. I've been told when I do my videos, when I have them on YouTube, that parents love them because I bring experts that know even more than I do in a certain field, and that we pick their brain and we want to provide valuable information to people that reach out to us or that are on my email list or my mailing list and so forth, or even going out and speaking at high schools, organizations, churches, nonprofit organizations. We go out and speak as much as we can to pass this information. Anything that these people that are going to be planning to send their kids to college, or counselors that want assistance, either one that you think would be a huge benefit for them to listen to.
Well, I think something that's important is that the way we've always done things isn't always the best way. I think one of the biggest pieces of advice that trusted teachers and counselors and parents have for their children has to do with the community college system. Many of them feel that this is a way to save money, and it was. But this is California, so if you're in California, you're dealing with a vastly overcrowded system, which now they're saying the average keeps going up. I mean, now some projections are it is 4 years before you can transfer.
Yeah. And
the dropout rate for, I don't know the overall, but I know for students of color it is like in the upper 80s, like 87% or some ridiculous amount, which means people are not making it through. The point of community college is to help prepare you for the 4-year experience. But I think that people need to understand that sometimes that's not the best avenue. And sometimes getting away and living in a college environment makes students more successful, and they finish sooner than going through the community college for sure. And if you looked at the years of lost income by spending 4 years in a community college and then transferring and maybe spending 3 more, is that really saving money in the long run?
That's, parents, this is a huge, I'm glad you brought this up. I talk about this at the workshop, that by default, because you look at a sticker price on the school brochures and you see tuition at $35,000 and you see tuition at $500 to $1,000 at the community college, you by default think community college is going to be cheaper. And that's what Lynda's talking about, that community college is right for a certain type of student, but it's not a cookie cutter that immediately, because you think it's too expensive and you haven't planned for this, that your default should be community college. And it is true that it's taking 4 years just to get 60 units to be able to transfer. And then another 3 years, you're at 7 years in college, and you said a huge amount of that percentage won't even get to that point. But if they do, they've lost 4 years of income because they thought they took the cheap route, and later they realized that it ended up costing them more money, more out of pocket, and so much more expenses, I call them intangible expenses that they don't see right now, that's awaited to happen in a couple years.
Right.
Whereas if they would have got straight 4 years, they're surrounding themselves with like-minded kids, because they say the power of association is you surround yourself and you're going to be the average of 5 of your friends. And I tell my students, if you're hanging around with losers, well, guess what? You're going to be a loser. I hate to be the first to say it. I had friends like that, and I detached myself from that environment. And it's
Right.
your responsibility as a student and parent to put yourself in the environment that you want to be, that's going to help you prosper and be able to allow you to achieve your college dreams and to be able to get you that job that you probably wouldn't have had because you went to a 4-year school, that the professors had connections with the organizations, that even that, they say it's not who you are, it's who you know, and it's just,
Right.
or who knows you. You
Right.
have to put yourself in that environment, and that's why people go to a 4-year school, and they're not paying more, they're really investing in their kids' future, and
Right, and a couple of important points. A lot of people go to community college because they don't know what else to do, so they're a little aimless. And when you're in a classroom situation, the dynamics of that course and your enjoyment level sometimes has to do with the engagement of the students around you. And if you're with a lot of people who are just there because they don't know what else to do, it changes your experience. It is not the same. And the other thing, and I think people, they tend to all focus on the same, like 25 colleges. There are 4,000 colleges in this country.
Mm-hmm.
I think people get a little snobbish about which colleges they should be in, and if not, I'm just going to community college and I'll transfer. For one thing, you should look at the transfer rates, because some of these Ivy Leagues don't really take transfers, or if they do, you start as a freshman again,
Yeah.
which probably isn't what you want to do. That's one. And also, with now, there's grade inflation, there's all kinds of inflation. Well, there's also degree inflation. Everybody's getting a master's now. So go to a 4-year that's a good match for you, that wants you to be there, that you're going to enjoy yourself. And maybe it's not Harvard, but you know what? Be an honor student and then apply to graduate school and see what your options are. I went to a school that was a little bit of a no-name, but I went to a name brand graduate school for free because I did very well there because I was happy. And now I realize that was a long time ago, but I see this scenario playing itself out among my students who have chosen schools that may not have been their top pick, but it was a school that offered them a good financial package and a good education, and it may not be a name brand, but there's a lot of good schools out there.
I agree.
That will lead you where you want to go. Just look at where some of the CEOs of major corporations have gone to school. Yes, there are the Harvard laws and things of that sort, but there's also going to be something like Kansas State or something, or what the president of Boeing, I think he went to Cal State LA or something. I mean, there's a lot to do. It has a lot to do with taking what you learn and moving from it.
Yeah.
Because we didn't all go to the best high schools, but that doesn't mean we didn't turn out well.
Sure.
So.
And that's a really good point, because I talk about get your 4-year education, find a school that academically, socially, financially is going to make a good fit.
Yes.
Because you can find a school that academically and socially makes a good fit for the student, but financially it's going to be a hardship on the family's retirement, because they may do it, but they don't realize that they did it in a way that now it's affecting their retirement. So when I talk about the funding, when I put all these pieces together for families, what I realized that I make the biggest difference in a family's life, even though the college planning is important, the getting financial aid, but putting the family in a better financial position where they funded college, but now they have more money that they didn't have to pay for college, that they can pay off their house or put it towards their retirement. It really is a byproduct of what we do towards their retirement, is what it really comes down to. So if we can help a family academically, socially, and financially make a good fit to find a school, and yeah, you're right, it's not going to be the Harvards, it's not going to be those buzz schools that I talk about. It's really going to be being on the top 25% of your incoming freshman class would really be a good indicator that you're going to do really well at that school. It doesn't make sense going to a school that you're on the lower end. You got in to UCLA at a 3.6, which I've gotten students in, but they may not socially make a good fit there. So it's not always the name that determines if you're going to get a good job. It really determines what you do with your degree and where you
Right.
go. That's going to
Nobody wants to hire the guy with the C average.
yeah.
Even internships now, the colleges are saying you have to have at least a 3.0. So you need to be in a place where you can make that happen. And some of these schools, because you're attractive to them, you're going to be in their upper echelon. They're going to offer you more money to go there. They're going to offer you perks. Some of them have honors colleges. They're great places to be. Don't be a snob. Look at them. Visit them, you know, and see that they actually are great places to be. I think we need to get the name brand out of our head. It's more to it than just what's on the front of your sweatshirt.
Yeah. And it's important because a lot of the schools, there's a lot of things parents don't know about. It's behind closed doors what happens. Like the U.S. News and World Report is one of the big places that people look at.
Oh,
And
rankings.
the rankings
Make me crazy.
The rankings is it's all the schools that have a lot of money. They spend a ton of money trying to see how they can get ranked higher. So, for example, if admission yield, how many offers went out, how many students accepted. If I'm a school that sends out 1,000 offers and 1,000 students accept, then that's 100% yield. On paper, that looks like that's a school that everybody that an offer goes out by the admissions, everybody accepts, so it's a high demand school. But they position themselves there because what they do is they track how many phone calls you've made to that school as a parent or as a student, and the more inquiries you have, they log that in their system, and they show that if you've made 6 inquiries at the school in your high school and you show more interest, then they would rather accept you because they know there's a higher percentage chance that you're going to end up accepting their offer. Whereas another student that may be a great fit but only sent out a college application and they look like they would fit, they're not going to accept that student first, even though they could, because they know that the yield of a student that's made 1 inquiry and actually accepts an offer, there's only a 6% conversion rate on that student coming on.
Although,
that's called strategic enrollment management.
Right.
This is the stuff behind the stuff that the financial analysts of the colleges are hired. They're financial analysts, and their job is to make their rankings go up. And their admissions procedures on who they accept, unfortunately, it's not like it used to be where it was all about just grades and SAT scores, and basically if you did those two, you were pretty much in at a lot of schools. Now there's a lot of business involved that they're looking at who's going to get ranked higher, what kind of students that's going to come, that's going to make the school get ranked higher, because the higher the ranking, the more prestige they are, the perception is that they're a better college, that you're going to pay more and you're going to get a better education. Doesn't mean you are.
right, but there's things in the rankings that to me don't even matter, like your percentage of alumni giving. How much money your alumni give? Well, if you're a school with a traditional wealthy base, because traditionally you had wealthy families attending your school, the alumni giving rate's going to be much higher. So you will always outrank the schools that are more like a state school kind of institute where they don't get those kind of donations. You know, sometimes if you look at, they'll tell you, here's what we use for ranking, and some of those things, that doesn't matter to me.
Now, that's a good point. A school that has high endowments, well, guess what? They're going to want higher income families to come to those schools, and they'll give you some money and entice a $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 income earner to come to that school, because they know the chances of that family giving back is a lot higher than a family that makes under $100,000 a year. And they know those little things can make a difference on increasing their rankings, increasing their endowment funds, which in reality they shouldn't pick students in that aspect, but that's just the business side.
Yeah, well, yeah, the wait list, you know, a lot of them are need aware. They're going to say, well, if we let in Susie, who we really love, we're going to have to fully fund them, comes from first-generation families, probably going to give all of their salary to help the family come up. But if we let in Jane, her family, her dad's a senator, she's a full-pay student, probably we could talk him into helping us get that wing built on the library, and we don't have to worry about spending our financial aid. So, you know, decisions are not always about who's the better student. There's all kinds of things. So that's why students need to look out for themselves and look for schools that suit them and not just who has the snob factor.
Sure. No, those are, parents, these are really, really good nuggets. I hope you're taking a lot of notes. I've mentally taken so much notes that just you and I talking, I've picked up on things that I do all the time, and it just reassures what we do and the knowledge that we go out and get. I'm always learning myself, so I hope you guys are learning as much as you and I are probably learning together here.
Well, I would say, strategy is extremely important in everything, but honestly, you need to trust your gut. If something feels right, then it is. Just make sure that that's what you're feeling. Sometimes what you're feeling is just the love of the name of the school. But if you are able to visit a school, or maybe it's a little far and expensive and you can't really do that, but you get a chance to email professors who actually email you back. You get to talk to some students who went there. Maybe even they can connect you with students from your area if it's out of town. And you feel like this just feels right. You need to trust that it is right. And that's where maybe the strategy can come in to make sure that financially this can be the school that you can attend. But also remember that nobody has one perfect school. Out of 4,000, only one? No. I would say everyone has 10 perfect schools, but you got to find them. But everyone has 10. You can be just as happy at this school as you can at that one. You have to believe that. You have to believe that there is more than one good place for you. So if it doesn't work out with this particular school, as much as you've tried, it doesn't mean that your college happiness is ruined. And there is another school. That's so important to remember.
I agree. And that's what I say. My approach is find out why you're going to college. Start with why first. Find out what the student wants to do career-wise. Why are we even doing this? And then back into finding your majors based on the careers that you may be looking at, the majors, the schools, and start narrowing 4,000 schools and look at what schools the student would make a safety school, be a safety school, a core school, or maybe a reach school. And make sure you know that these are true safety safety core and reach schools, because you want to narrow down to about 8 to 10 schools ideally, and then from there you want to make sure financially it's going to make a good fit also, and what's going to be the least amount of out-of-pocket over this 4-year education, and that you're comparing apples to apples. Don't compare a state school at $20,000 a year to a tuition school of $50,000 a year. Really look at what the net cost is going to be. So that's a huge thing that you want to look at. Also, another thing that I hear is I get parents getting advice. This is just, I want to throw this out because I just got this a couple weeks ago. A family of ours, they came to me 2 years ago, and then they went to their financial advisor and their accountant. They did both. And their financial guy said, well, I can help you with this, and I can do the net worth of the FAFSAs and all of that. The financial guy went in and submitted the financial aid forms and put the client's net worth. The net worth was $1.5 million. And that was their 401k, their IRAs, their mutual funds, their CDs. And because the FAFSA, for example, he filled out, says, what is your net worth?
Right.
But he didn't go in detail and look at the instructions page on the FAFSA that says, under your personal net worth, you do not include your 401k, your IRAs, your home equity and things like that. But that guy didn't know. But because that financial advisor was that client's financial planner for about 15 years, the client trusted him and said, yeah, you can do it all. And then in the first year of getting in, they got zero money, and they had to borrow a $40,000 plus loan. And then they got they went to a workshop again after they saw me the first time. And when I went back and I looked at their FAFSA, I realized they had listed their net worth when they weren't supposed to. Just because a financial planner or an accountant or someone you're getting advice, it doesn't mean they're giving you real advice because they think they understand what net worth means.
Well, they need to understand that the rules are different in this game.
Sure.
This is the college financial aid game. It's not the same as the real life financial aid game. And so I think that's why things that seem like common sense, you need to read the instructions. If this is your first time through, do not think you know.
Yeah, that's
because
huge.
Like the whole thing about small businesses, you can ridiculously decrease your financial aid by not understanding how to report assets if you are a small business.
Sure.
Most small businesses I know have less than 100 employees.
Yeah.
And that's a very different FAFSA
Correct.
from someone who has more than 100. So
Sure.
It's just, these are the kind of things that you go to an expert for. You just need to make sure it's an expert in college planning,
That's
not
right.
just an expert in taxes.
Yeah, some people they think they're the jack of all trade but master of none. But unfortunately, because the client has worked with this person for 10 years, their immediate attraction is that person, and then they realize that what you don't know, you don't know. I go, there's a universe of knowledge. If you can picture this circle here, in this circle, what you know in this world is probably 1% of what's out there. Like, you know counseling, but you don't know physics, you don't know medicine.
Right.
You know it exists, but you're not an expert there. But there's an area that you know, and you're the best at it. That's what you know. That's like 1 or 2% of the universe. Then you have another 20 to 30% of the universe of something you know that's out there, but you don't know how it works yourself. But you know it exists. So if I need to cure myself in some kind of health condition, I know there's going to be someone out there that can help me, and it's there. But then there's the 70% of the knowledge of universe, which is you don't know what you don't know. Like, people didn't know there was an EFC and that you need to know an EFC 4 years in advance versus the year before.
Right.
So that's, you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what you don't know as far as that you can go to a private school for cheaper than a state school until I show them the formulas,
Right.
the need-based formulas, and what schools have need-based aid, like you said, 100%, and some only meet 50%. Those things parents don't even know it exists. That's okay. But we have to accept that in the world of universe, there's a lot more things that we just don't know even exists out there. And that's the stuff that I want to make sure parents know, that just because you go out to someone and you tell them, what do you think about this advice, or someone talks about college planning and their strategies, they may just not know it exists. So they're going to tell you what they know and the resources that's been given to them. So it's not their fault that they're utilizing the resources that they've been given. It's just that they don't know what they don't know.
Right, and also the rules change. From year to year, there could be a big shift that could change everything, and they didn't catch that update.
Sure.
So,
Like, I feel comfortable using an accountant.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why I hire an accountant, I don't walk into the IRS office to do my taxes. They can do it for free. It's the same concept of get your FAFSA done for free.
right,
But I'm not going to walk into the IRS office and say, hey, can you do my taxes? Obviously, I'm going to hire an accountant it's an expert, that's a CPA, that's certified, that has years of experience, number one, being licensed and working with clients, because I know that knowledge, I'm borrowing that credibility and saying, hey, do this for me because I'm not good at this, and by me paying you a fee, I'm actually making an investment that you're going to save me more money on taxes than if I just saved that money and just bought TurboTax and just did it for $50. There's a
Right,
time and place
right.
for an accountant.
But if you were only doing a 1040 EZ form, you
Exactly.
don't need someone. So
That's a good point.
That's a matter of just, if you have complications,
Yeah.
you need help. If it's a straightforward thing, then you can do it yourself.
Yeah.
And just go into a workshop or something and be enough. If
Exactly.
it's getting complicated, that's where you get a better return on your investment if you
Sure.
ask for help.
Yeah, we had a family recently come in. They make $60,000 a year. They're a business owner, and their AGI was $64,000, and they're a class of 14 starting next year. But they have about $1.2 million when the business was doing well in mutual funds and all of these accounts. Well, even though the income is almost close to like Pell Grant, Cal Grant, their assets are over the protection allowance. So they invested in my program, paid a couple $1,000s, because they wanted to make sure that even though their income is low now, that they can probably fill out the forms, they wanted to make sure all their assets are positioned the right way, so that way when it's time to submit their financial aid form, just by 1 or 2 or 3 little changes that I'm going to make, whether it's spending 5 hours or 20 hours helping them, to them they didn't care how many hours I spend. All they cared about was the results. Can you get me more financial aid than me doing it on my own?
Right.
I go, that's a great question to ask, because it may take me 2 minutes to fix that problem, or it may take me 10 hours. I'm still going to charge the same amount because it's what we charge, but it's the results that the families are getting is what they care about. They don't care if it took me 2 minutes to solve that problem that they didn't know. So what's easy for me is not easy for a client because they don't do it every day. To me, because I've been doing this so long, I can look at a FAFSA or a client's finances and go, here are the icebergs that you don't see on a shoreline. If you're on a cruise line and you see ahead and you're steering and you're the captain and you're looking in the shorelines looking for, icebergs, you can't see that. You can see rocks, or maybe you can see places that you got to avoid so you don't crash the cruise line, but what you don't see is the iceberg underneath. So what I do is I go underneath and go, okay, we need to steer away, because you may see that it's clear here, but there may be an iceberg down there that you're going to hit and you may sink the ship. So that's where I tell families that that's where my experience is I know the stuff behind the stuff because of 2,200 families that I've personally handheld through this process, and that's usually the difference.
Right, and here's how you can really just sum the whole everything up.
That's a great way to end this, so thanks for that, Lynda.
With the help of a good counselor, school-based or otherwise, and the help of a financial advisor, working together, you can afford to go to college even if you don't think so. And I think that people need to understand that the more complicated your income is, the more you need that financial piece. If you're a low-income family, you need a straight form, you can probably do it without help. But if it's a little more complicated, if you've got a higher income, if there are asset questions, you need to go to someone who can help you with that. So with the help of your counselor and an expert in financial aid, together you will go to college, you will graduate, your parents will not be working till they're 90, and everyone's happy. So that's really what it's about. I couldn't have put it any better than that one. That's perfect. It's get your child the best college education at the best price so that you can also retire once you take care of that. Right. I think that's what the bigger picture is here. This is all the little things we've talked about. That's right, and we all want the same thing. Yeah. That's what we all want. Great. Lynda, this has been an honor, a pleasure to have you. Hopefully we'll have you again on this show, and we can dive more deeper and pick your brain on the wealth of knowledge you have to share to counselors who are starting in the NACAC, WACAC that are starting this. I think this is a great tool that we offer to counselors, providing a resource to your school in the areas that you don't do. So keep in mind that we're here to help you, and we want to make you a better counselor in areas that you're not an expert, because we have that knowledge. We can come out to your school and provide these kind of services to the parents and the students that you're working with and fulfill that gap that you may not know. And also parents, if you want a true, honest feedback, if we truly can help you or not, if there's anybody that you can trust in that area, is us. We see over 2,000 families every couple months, speaking at all these high schools. We have more families that come into our office to see us than we can even offer, even if we wanted to take all these clients as a client. I would love to take on more clients, but we have a ratio here in our office. It's about 25-1. My business has been set up where our caseload is 25-1, working with students and parents on the student planning and financial aid. The reason I have that belief is because every student is unique and different. They need a lot more hand-holding, and so do the parents. So that's why I can't take on 1,000 students even if I wanted to, because I don't want that kind of service that, it's going to be a disservice to the family. So that's why we keep growing, but we keep bringing on experts, and we take on a small amount of families that we know we truly can help out. So if you come into our office or do a phone meeting with us, if this is too far for you to come to our office, my licensed advisors will let you know one way or another if we can help you, what our services will cost and what the investment would be, or we will let you know there's no reason why you should hire us, because there's a lot of families we say, you can do this on your own, you don't need to pay anybody a fee. So if you want that advice, then it's a safe zone for you to come in to talk to us. And with that said, I want to wrap up this interview, thanking you again, Lynda, for being here, and we'll look forward to seeing you on our next show. Have a good day, guys.